there exists a painting so disturbing that it forces you to confront the very nature of evil itself. Created by William Blake in the early 1800s, this watercolour depicts something that most artists would never dare to imagine, let alone put on canvas. The work is called The Great Red Dragon and the Beast from the Sea, and it shows us the Antichrist not as some distant mythological figure, but as something terrifyingly human. When you first encounter this image, your eyes are drawn immediately to a massive red figure towering over the composition. This is the dragon, Satan himself, rendered with the muscular perfection of a classical hero. His body ripples with divine beauty, a haunting reminder of what he once was before his fall from grace. But it's what rises beneath him that truly chills the soul. From the churning waters emerges a grotesque beast with 7 heads, each crowned in mock regality. These are not the noble faces of kings, but twisted, almost comical parodies of earthly power. Their expressions range from the absurd to the menacing, creating an unsettling tension between the ridiculous and the terrifying. Blake was not simply illustrating a biblical text when he created this work. He was wrestling with something far more profound, something that had haunted him throughout his artistic career. Living through the aftermath of the French Revolution and witnessing the rise and fall of empires, Blake understood that evil rarely announces itself with obvious horns and pitchforks. Instead, it comes disguised as authority, as beauty, as legitimate power. The composition itself tells a story of corruption, flowing downward like a poisonous river. At the top, the dragon stands in magnificent terror, his form still retaining echoes of angelic perfection. His multiple heads and horns create a grotesque parody of divine omniscience, as if he were claiming to possess the all-seeing wisdom that belongs to God alone. The way Blake positions him suggests dominion, authority, the right to rule. Below this figure of sublime terror, the beast emerges from the sea, that ancient symbol of chaos and the abyss. In the book of Genesis, God brought order from the primordial waters. Here, Blake shows us the opposite, the undoing of creation itself. The beast's 7 crowned heads rise like a perverted reflection of divine completeness. Where God's perfection is unified and harmonious, this creature presents us with multiplicity without unity, a fractured grotesquerie that mocks the very concept of sovereignty. What makes this image particularly unsettling is how Blake humanizes the monstrous. The dragon's body could belong to a Renaissance sculpture, celebrating human form and divine proportion. The beast's heads, despite their distortion, retain recognizably human features. This is evil that doesn't announce itself as obviously foreign or alien. It wears familiar faces, speaks in known voices, claims legitimate authority. The biblical foundation for this image comes from Revelation chapters 12 and 13, where John the Divine describes his apocalyptic vision of the final confrontation between good and evil. But Blake wasn't content to simply illustrate scripture. He was interpreting it through the lens of his own turbulent times, when traditional authorities were crumbling and new forms of power were emerging across Europe. In Blake's hands, the Antichrist becomes more than a future individual who will deceive the nations. It becomes a system, a pattern of corruption that manifests whenever earthly power allies itself with spiritual rebellion. The crowns on the beast's heads aren't symbols of legitimate rule, but signs of usurped authority, counterfeit sovereignty that demands worship it has no right to receive. The dragon's beauty is perhaps the most disturbing element of Blake's vision. Look closely at his form, and you'll see something that should be magnificent. His body possesses the ideal proportions that Renaissance masters spent lifetimes trying to capture. The musculature speaks of divine strength. The posture suggests rightful dominion. This is not some medieval demon with obvious claws and fangs that would immediately repel any thinking person. Instead, Blake shows us evil as it truly operates in the world. It doesn't announce itself with obvious malevolence. It comes clothed in authority, speaking the language of order and progress. promising solutions to humanity's deepest problems. The dragon's multiple heads aren't random monstrosities but calculated perversions of divine omniscience, claiming to see all while seeing nothing truly. What Blake understood from his study of Revelation was that the Antichrist system doesn't oppose religion outright. Instead, it co-opts it, corrupts it, turns sacred symbols into instruments of control. The crowns on the beasts' heads aren't symbols of legitimate rule, but trophies of conquered territories, each representing a realm where spiritual authority has been replaced by something counterfeit. The positioning of these figures reveals Blake's profound theological insight. The dragon stands above, not as creator, but as corrupter. His dominion flows downward, like poison through a well, contaminating everything below. The beast emerges from the sea, that primordial chaos that God once brought to order, now unleashing disorder back into the world. In this painting, Blake captured not just a vision from Revelation, but a warning that echoes through every generation. The most terrifying aspect of his Antichrist isn't its obvious monstrosity, but its seductive beauty, its claim to legitimate authority, its promise to restore order to a chaotic world. This is evil that doesn't repel us but attracts us, that speaks our language and wears our faces.